What should a school focus on? There's 5 objectives that we've outlined in the Kentucky School Self-Assessment. And you're going to do the school self-assessment as your next step following this training, or it's recommended as a next step. But I do want to share with you these 5 objectives because they might help you frame how you want to go about your family engagement work. First, relationships. If that hasn't been loud and clear, I don't know what has. Meaningful relationships and conversations with families. Two-way communication, which pretty much follows along with relationships, but we have to get away from the information sharing and giving to families and hoping they find a way to use that information to support their child, but instead engaging in two-way communication. So once again, we can find what role that family is going to play, what their needs are, and also getting information from the family that will help us educate their child. We need to ensure that anytime we are having contact with families that we're linking it to students learning. So if we are having events at the school or we're having newsletters go home to families, that we're always linking it to learning. In the middle and high school arena, you may think about emails to families quarterly that just says, hey, I'm the math teacher. Here's the 4 things that we're going to be learning over the next couple months. Here's a couple ways that you could have your child kind of working on this at home beyond homework. They may teach the parent how to do that math, right? Like many of us families, I mean, my child's in 4th grade and I'm already starting to get a little nervous about where this math is going. But a cool way I could support him the older he gets is for him to show me how you do this math problem. I heard from your teacher by email that this is what you guys are learning right now. Like, show me what that looks like. Maybe offer extra credit if the parent emails back and says, he did this, he showed me what he's learning in class right now with calculus, then the student gets 1 point extra credit. So just helping the students and the families engage in learning conversations can be discussion topics. It can also be a shared learning experience where the student is teaching the parent. We also want to make sure, going back to the very beginning of this training, that each student is identified with some adult in the building, some adult in the school building, whether it's their homeroom teacher, it could be janitorial staff, it could be some after school staff, bringing them in, but there's someone in that school who knows that student's name and knows at least something about a family member or another adult who supports that child's education. Who do they go home to? Do we know that about every student in our classroom? And are we utilizing all the staff in the building to make sure that we have that information? And community partnership. We'll get a little bit more into how community partners can really expand the capacity of your school. So this has been people's favorite activity with this training. So I hope that you enjoy it too. On page 6 of your learning packet, you'll see 4 versions of family school partnerships. This is time to give yourself a little assessment and see how you're doing. Just a quick tool to wrap your mind around what it looks like to have a true partnership school. We find that some folks think that they're a partnership school, and after taking this assessment, find out that they're actually a come if we call school, which is the easiest kind of niche to fall into and get really comfortable there and not continuing to improve your family engagement practices so that you are more of a partnership school. So take about 5-10 minutes or however long you need and walk through this self-assessment. You'll check mark 1 per row, and then at the end, whichever column you have most check marks in, that's really where you're falling as a baseline right now. So pause this video now. Another tool to add to your toolbox, if it's not already overflowing, are the 11 goalpost strategies for family engagement. Laura talked earlier about where to start strategies and gave you some really concrete ways to get started, but yet here's another way that you could get started. Whatever month it is right now, start there. So if it's November, then you want to think about how can I improve my family conferences? We recommend calling them family conversations. How can I improve my family conversations and IEP meetings? Just start right there. There's tip sheets that you can download that accompany this training, and they were developed by the collaborative. So there's multiple voices and lenses in those tip sheets, and they're also based on research from Beyond the Bake Sale and Powerful Partnerships. These tip sheets, no more than 3 pages, some are just 1 page, outline for you some ways to do each of these strategies to improve family engagement. To get familiar with these tools, we're going to look at the August and September tip sheets. Teacher wellness and support, and that's really about understanding that teachers can't pour from an empty cup. So if our teachers don't feel supported and we're not modeling for them as leaders in our schools how to build relationships and support systems from leaders to teachers, it's going to be really hard for teachers to do that for families. So teacher wellness and support check-in is really geared toward building leadership. Welcoming phone calls or home visits for families. And there's some ideas for schools that are bigger and also middle and high schools there. Family friendly back to school nights. Let's rethink how we go about a back to school night as our first introduction and welcome to families. So look, those tip sheets are linked, and on page 7, each of the 11 are linked to a strategy tip sheet. So you'll want to pull that up and download one tip sheet and record at the bottom of page 7 some ideas that you got from that tip sheet. So pause me now. Use it or lose it. I'm sure you're energized and motivated by all the great information that you learned today, but unfortunately, if you just sat and listened and maybe cheated a little bit and didn't fill out all of your reflection questions, then you'll probably only retain about 5 to 10% of what was presented today, maybe 20 if you watched all the videos all the way through. We'd really like to shoot for 75 to 90% of retaining what we taught today. So this is the time to take the next step in your learning. We told you, and we did, provide 10 tools today. You've got 2 video examples, the first one being what high engagement can look like in that first animated film. You've also heard from a parent of what family engagement, what kind of impact it had on her to build relationships with families. You've got some definitions and research highlights. We hear from a lot of educators and families that they know family engagement's important, but they have a hard time selling it or making the case. So those definitions and research highlights are really great for that. You've got DeHaab's story, which just printing off that story and having a handful of people read it can be really powerful and just a great discussion starter. 5 roles families can play. A lot of planning and next steps could be built around those 5 roles. You've got the where to start ideas. So maybe something really clicked for you there, or it led you down another path, and so you've got some great ideas of where you'd like to start. You could pick the month that you're in. 11 goalpost strategies. Pick your month and start there. You have 5 objectives for family and school engagement, especially if you're a school building leader. You can look at those 5 objectives, or if you're on some type of leadership council, those are really great ways to frame next steps for family engagement at the school. You've got your quick school self-reflection tool that could be used in all sorts of ways. If you're doing this live, you've got a new teammate and an action item already figured out. And 10, the Kentucky Family and School Partnership Self-Assessment. You have a link to that at the bottom of your learning packet. So what in the world can you do with all these tools? You could host a staff or grade level meeting and discuss one or a few of them. Family focus group materials, we talked about just hosting open and honest conversations with families just to get an idea of where you're at and where they'd like to go. You could partner with someone in your school. So pick your school buddy, your buddy at work, and say, "Hey, I took this really great training. I'm fired up. Let me tell you about this one idea I'd really like to do. Will you do it in your classroom, and I'll do it in my classroom?" And we can support each other. Never be afraid to start small and grow big. Sometimes the reason we don't make any progress is we try to take on too much at the beginning and we get frustrated and overwhelmed, and so we quit. So just start small, one other person and one tool from today. If you're a teacher or a parent, you can request a meeting with a school building leader and assistant principal or principal and say, I'd really like to share some key insights and ideas that I got from this training. You could take these materials to one of those school councils or PTA and suggest a subcommittee take on next steps for stronger family engagement at that school. Some of those councils and PTAs are just yearning for deeper and more meaningful work, and this is a great way for a handful of those members to dig into something new. We also suggest doing this training as a school team. So if you took this training just to see what it was all about, maybe forwarding the link to 3 or 4 other folks at your school and then setting a time in a week or 2 to get together and discuss what you want to do with the information. And of course, I'm sure you've got ideas of your own. So, you don't have to follow our examples. So on the bottom of page 8, use it or lose it. I want you to, before you end this training today, one thing, just your first action item, one thing that motivates you and gets you excited. Write down who could support you, who at your school could help you do this. Or maybe it's a family member or friend who you can just let them know that you're going to try this and they can support you. Who could you support? Maybe you're a rock star at family engagement, but you feel like this would be really great information for either a new teacher or someone else. So supporting them with this while you're trying something new too. We recommend getting that Outlook calendar out right now and block off an hour or however you keep your schedule, Outlook or planner, and go ahead and block off 1 hour next week and 1 hour the week after that to work on your family engagement ideas and next steps. So book it now. That's it. Thank you. You can contact me at brooke.gill@pritchardcommittee.org. Again, a huge shout out and thank you to our partners, SIPL and CFL, Learning Grove, Partners for Education, and KDE. You can find more information and trainings at pritchardcommittee.org/family engagement. Thanks for joining us today.